What is up? Good evening, good evening, good evening. What is happening? New life, V life, friends, folks, bless you all. Good evening, good evening. I'm Pastor D for those of you that may be on for the first time, and welcome to Couch Time. This is our final Couch Time for 2024. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we do what's called Couch Time. We sit down, man, and we get into it, man. We really talk about, deal with emotions and our mentality and things we're dealing with mentally. You know, for myself as a pastor, for those of you that know me, you know, man, I'm really serious about mental and emotional health. I talked about it this past Sunday. I said, after your relationship with Christ, man, it's probably the most important thing, because if you are spent or things are not well with you mentally and emotionally, you can't even be who you need to be. You can't be the husband and the father that you need to be. You can't be the wife or the mother that you need to be. You cannot be the employee that you need to be if your mind and your emotions are whack. So that's why we deal with it. That's why we talk about it. So we've been having an incredible time this month, the month of May. We started with Dr. Hill, and then we dealt with the mental and emotional health of our teens and our children, as we had our teachers on and dealt with stuff all throughout the month. And we had our own Brianna, our PhD student, dealing with some things and doing some activities this past Sunday. Was absolutely amazing. And so here we are now, the final time we're gathering together, at least for Mental Health Awareness Month. I can tell you all this. Listen, as pastor, I can tell you this. Part of our vision is actually dealing with mental health and stability. You see that when you come in the room, you look at that banner, it talks about that. And so I believe that God is going to use this ministry to really deal with the mind and the emotions of people. I think it's so important. I talk about this all the time. Listen, when somebody has an issue or pain or ache in their body, and it's going on for some time, we don't tell them, hey, just suck it up, right? We tell them, hey, go to the doctor. Well, guess what? If somebody's dealing with something mentally and emotionally, it's okay for us to deal with that. Tell them to go to a psychologist, say a psychiatrist, a physical therapist, a family counselor, a therapist, whatever it may be. We're trusting God, we're believing God. But like my bishop says, God can heal by miracle, by medicine. And so we got to take advantage of where we are in the 21st century and all that God has made available. And so I'm excited about tonight. I'm excited about finishing this Mental Health Awareness Month very strong with some incredible guests. Let me kind of just lay the foundation really quick before I bring them on. I am so grateful for military. I'm grateful for military. I'm grateful for law enforcement. I'm so grateful for their sacrifice. And, I remember years ago talking to somebody who was a Marine, and he said to me, Dominic, the reason why you see America get involved in so many different things, we go here, we go there. He said, because we're trying to keep certain things off our soil. See, we don't know in this country what it's like for bombs to be dropped and all those different types of things all throughout the day, all throughout the night. And so, listen, our military has so much to do with that, and I'm so grateful for them. Now, the question is, why are we dealing with this tonight? Because tonight we're talking about the cost of serving. We're talking about PTSD and some other things that our military men and women face. Why are we dealing with that tonight, Pastor D? Why are we even dealing with this tonight? Let me tell you my concern as a civilian. Before I started pastoring full-time, I was with an organization that dealt with and helped people get employment. And so when you're dealing with employment, you kind of deal with every area of a person's life. And so I was fortunate enough to be part of a program, starting a program and overseeing a program that was actually on Fort Irwin Military Base, a international training facility. It's right outside of Barstow. And so that program, we were actually the only civilian program at the time on a military base, and we were helping the soldiers as they were ending their military career and now transitioning into civilian life. And so we were helping them get employment, whether it was in California or going back east, or whether they want to go to another country. We were trying to help them in that process. And so, being connected to those soldiers, they were so active duty, seeing where they are, seeing them still kind of connected to services and functioning. And although there may have been some nervousness, and we'll talk about some of that stuff, they were still at a certain place. And, it was everything from the person that had been in the 4 to 8 years, or the person that was retiring after 20 years of service. And so we were helping them transition into civilian life, helping them find jobs and employment, all those different types of things. And so bring up that photo. I want you to bring up the photo of the man and the woman, the soldiers, the officers. There we go. So this is what I was accustomed to seeing right here. When I was on that base, I was accustomed to seeing these strong individuals that represented our country well, had such pride, right? And so now take that off the screen. So that was a certain point. And then several years later, I was working on and eventually overseeing a homeless veteran employment program. You heard that right. A homeless veteran employment program. Put up that other picture right here. And so this is the population that I was working with. So I went from the enlisted, bright future, what was ahead, to now working with homeless veterans, individuals that had raised, that had risen. You can go and take that off. Individuals that had risen in the ranks and done so many great things. Now here they were homeless, living in homeless shelters, living under a bridge, literally, living on the street, all of that. And so to see somebody go from this enlisted to living on the street, man, listen, that's a concern. That's a concern. And so you have these individuals that give their lives, that are some of the most skilled and highly trained people on the planet, end up homeless. We got to look at that. We got to figure out what's going on with that, to go from one thing to another. And so let me read these stats real fast. Nearly 1 in 3 veterans from wars in Iraq and Afghanistan develop PTSD. My goodness. And I've said this before. I said that this month, listen, this post-traumatic stress syndrome, listen. Some people got PTSD from how y'all were raised. To be honest with you, you raised in the hood, man, you got some PTSD, man. So there's going to be some things that are said tonight that you're going to be identified. You may say, well, I wasn't in the military, but you were raised on the concrete jungle. So trust me, these gentlemen are going to say some stuff tonight that's going to bless your heart and help you. So it says nearly 1 in 3 veterans from wars in Iraq and Afghanistan develop PTSD. PTSD rates, here's another stat, rates among female veterans, PTSD rates among female veterans are more than double those of male veterans. About 1 in 3 I'm all excited tonight. Let me calm down. About 1 in 3 female veterans face sexual trauma during service. I've had some female veterans share with me some of the just horrific things that they went through while they were in the service. And so that's some real talk. About 1 in 10 veterans returning from war in Iraq and Afghanistan struggle with alcohol and drug use. Man, about 1 in 10 outpatient military clinic appointments is for depression. Since 9/11, military suicide rates are 4 times higher than deaths in war operations. When I read that, I said, man, I'm gonna have to ask my brothers about that, because that is, my goodness, I need some help understanding that right there. And here goes the last stat I want to give you. It says veteran suicide rate are 1.5 times higher than that of the general population. And we didn't even talk about how many end up homeless. We didn't talk about the number that end up divorced. These brothers told me about these Dear John letters. I'm going to have them share that with you in a minute. It blew my mind when I heard about some of the stuff that individuals deal with while they're in the military. We didn't talk about how many end up with criminal records. I work with so many veterans that started with, they got out and they struggled, had drug and alcohol issues, ended up losing their license gets suspended, all that kind of stuff, and ended up, in prison, all the different types of things. These are individuals that, again, some retired, highly ranked, and then ended up in some of these places. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to deal with a lot of this stuff as much as we can. So the 2 individuals that I'm bringing on, this is what I was thinking about. I know a ton of military, a ton of veterans. A lot of it has to do with our Bishop Jesse Giddens. He was a military man. And so when Lady Jen and I went to Destiny back in 2008, that's when we began to get connected with a lot of veterans. And matter of fact, one individual we're bringing on right now, he was still active duty when I first met him. And so I know a lot of veterans, and know some personally and have some friends, and even there's a member or two in our ministry that's prior military. But the reason why I have these two individuals, I'm bringing these two individuals on, not only are they really good friends, but a couple of years ago, I got a chance to spend some time with them over several days. And man, listen, these two cats opened up. And the one thing that I realized as a civilian working with veterans, man, if they let you in their space, it is a special fraternity and sorority when it comes to military. If they let you in their space and they begin to share these experiences and different things, it's very sacred. And these two individuals went into detail. I mean, detailed about some of the things they had to deal with, some things they had to face. And so, of course, when I wanted to do this time, I said, man, I got to have these two cats. And they so graciously gave up their time. They're all the way on the East Coast. So it was very late there. And here they are loving on us. And so I got two of them. One is Pastor Vincent Austin. Let me say recently Dr. Vincent Austin of Agape Church on the East Coast. He was enlisted in the service. He enlisted in service in March of 2001, 6 months before 9/11. Oh, my goodness. Had no idea that was coming. Advanced to rank of E7, Sergeant First Class in 7 years. Amazing. Commissioned as an officer in year 7. Man, deployed 6 times. You hear what I just said? Left U.S. soil, deployed 6 times, 5 combat, 1 combat support. Earned his EIB, which is Expert Infantryman Badge, and Airborne Wings. 23 jumps. And what I understand is 2 were during deployment. 23 jumps. He got to talk about that. His highest award was Army Commendation with Valor Device. And then I'm going to probably mess this up. Meritorious Service Medal. He retired after 20 years, 2 months, and 8 days of active duty. And the next individual is Pastor Kelsey Goodson from Strong Tower Christian Ministry. He enlisted in the Army in 1989. He retired at the rank of First Sergeant after 22 years of distinguished service. My goodness. Deployed, left U.S. soil 3 times in Kosovo and Iraq. Earned the Master Aviation Badge, Senior Craftsman Crewman Badge, Drill Sergeant Badge. He was a drill sergeant. That means don't mess with him. Air Assault Badge, Distinguished Member of the Sergeant. I think this is Audi. Probably messing that up. Murphy Club. I apologize for that. And its highest award was the Bronze Star, 2nd award. These individuals are incredible people, incredible men. I love these 2 guys, man. God has sent me these 2 guys in my life, and they're wonderful spouses, good friends of myself and Lady Jen. So can we now bring on the stage my friends, Dr. Vincent and Pastor Kelsey? Can we go ahead and bring them, please, on the virtual stage? There goes my guys. There goes my guys.
Good evening, Pastor D.
Listen,
Pastor D.
I'm so grateful. Listen, I could literally, I promise you all, I could literally talk an hour about each of them, just the men that they are. They call me big brother, but I'm telling you, I get so much from them. They pour so much into me, and I'm so grateful to have them, in my life, and being pastors and in DEMA together. And so I'm honored that you 2 would take time out on the East Coast, late there. Y'all have services, all that kind of stuff, man. And then for you to hop on here, it is a privilege and an honor. And I want to say thank you. I love you guys. Thank you so much for this time.
Thank you for having us, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now we want to get into really some categories, but really kind of just the journey of a military man, a military woman. And because this is Mental Health Awareness Month, because this is couch time, because we're talking about the cost of serving, we're looking at this from the perspective of the mental and emotional things that folks face. And listen, the physical portion, which wears on the mental and the emotional. So we want to just kind of explore that. We want to look at from enlisting to active duty. And what I learned from y'all, man, there's different types of levels of active duty, man. Y'all got to explain the deployment, not just the deployment. Y'all got to explain this whole combat soldier, what that means. We want to talk about transitioning out and then being a veteran. All these different phases and then the dynamics on the family, the dynamic, not just the soldier, but then the dynamics on the spouse, on the children, on the best friends, on all that kind of stuff. And then now, and let me say this last thing as I'm kind of trying to frame tonight. Let me kind of say this last thing. For most civilians, our exposure to soldiers or to military, honestly, is number one, the recruiting videos. And man, you watch those recruiting videos, boy, you get hyped. Be all you can be, boy. You want to go learn how to do one-hand push-ups. I mean, you see these cats, man, you get so hyped, right? So the recruiting video, it shows just such dynamic teamwork, all that kind of stuff, man. Super hype. And then we watch movies. We watch television, we watch shows, we watch dramas, we watch sitcoms. So that's kind of like our exposure. And then probably I would dare say this, is that probably one of the places that we're exposed to veterans is then the veteran that's standing on the side of the road and has their sign that says, "Veteran, I'm hungry, want to eat." So, for myself, I probably have had more exposure to military and veteran than most because of the types of jobs that I had. But for most people, I think most civilians, unless they are married to, have a cousin in the military, they really just don't know and don't understand. So we kind of see the glamour, and we see, a show like MASH, right? That's talking about the comical part, all that kind of stuff. One thing that we don't see when we see those hype videos, we don't see the blood. We don't see the depression. We don't see the difficulty and all that kind of stuff. And so we're going to get into this. And although we kind of have some questions we may jump into, I really want y'all to feel free to flow. Okay, this is your time, your night. Teach us, civilians, please. And then for the military folks that are watching, I'm believing God that there are folks that are veterans, are enlisted, that are going to be watching this, that are going to be blessed by, helped by, ministered by your story and the things that you all share. And we're going to get raw, we're going to get real, because that's all we know how to do. Amongst the three of us, that's what we do, man. And so let me first kind of ask this question, just kind of kick it off. What drew y'all to the military? What made you want to enlist and sign up for the military?
I needed to eat, man.
Wow.
I needed to eat. I mean, just in short, I needed to eat. But as I shared the other day while we were talking, and again, Pastor D, thank you so very much. Thank you for having us. Thank you for addressing this particular topic during this month. There's so many different ways that mental health can go, but this is important, and it's often overlooked. So thank you for allowing us the platform to be able to discuss this. But for me, it was trying to do something better for my family. I was out there kind of just flapping in the wind. I had been working directly out of high school, all throughout high school. Very young man, had my first child at 15, next one at 19, married at 19. And so I needed something that was better for the family. And so the military seemed like a good idea. And as I said, I found it in the back of the classifieds, back when people actually looked at a newspaper for a gig. Yeah, right. Exactly. Before the websites. Found something for the Air Force, but en route to the Air Force, I saw a better, brighter promise from the Army. So here we are.
Wow. And Pastor Kelsey, what drew you to the military?
I would say eat, but my grandmother could cook pretty good, so she didn't have a problem. But that's kind of the same place. I thought I was going off to college, but then I didn't understand the true dynamics of college. And I just took the test and decided that, this is a place I wanted to be. And I always liked the military, was in what they call JROTC in high school and all of that stuff. Always had a draw to it. So it was just a decision, would I put my family in another financial bind to help me get through school, or I just make it my own way? I grew up in the area where when you turn 18, you only had 3 choices, military, school, or get a job.
Right.
We picked one.
Yeah. So let me ask, I know that there is that fraternity and that sorority that I see with military people. I know that there is a pride, a level of pride, and I love it. But let me ask you, what you thought it would be and what it was. Did it line up or what?
You want to go first, KG?
I'll go first then. Somewhat it lines up. I'll use what you told me about the video. The be all you can be video. That's not what you're gonna get. I'm going to let you know that is not what it is.
Yeah.
You talk to other veterans before, like my uncle was a Vietnam veteran, so he kind of said what it was going to be like. And I came in 1989. It was just at the tail end of when the Vietnam vets were kind of moving their way out. So I got a taste of it, but it wasn't to the level of some that came in before me. So it was sort of like what I predicted, but not exactly. I don't think you can really prepare for it, what you're going to encounter when you actually get on there and you tie up those boots and you're standing on that concrete or in that cattle car. It's a life-changing event.
Wow. What about you?
I like that figure right there. It's a life-changing event. It's a significant emotional event.
Yes.
In your life. There's no way around it. You show up, you think you're prepared. You're still a relatively young man. I enlisted 22 years old. And, day one, they're like, hey, we're going to run 5 miles. You're like, oh, that's just a mark on the wall. No, you're going to run 5 miles. And then they're going to talk about you real bad when you fall out about a mile into it. So no, it's not what you think. It's not glorious. It's not fabulous. It's not polished. You don't have some soundtrack while you're running through the woods carrying a gun. It's none of that. There's none of that. Right. There's a lot of dirt, a lot of grit. But ultimately, when it begins to start rounding out and you start getting used to it and you start calling it home, it becomes something.
Yeah. So now let's talk about boot camp. Because it seems like, again, I'm a civilian. I'm just asking questions. I'm learning. That is the beginning of this transformation of maybe retooling the mind, not just the physical, but so boot camp. What kind of, and especially for a young man, right? A young man. I mean, you're trying to just learn life, right? For these cats that come like right out of high school or whatever, they're trying to learn life. And all of a sudden, here you are. And you think about this. If you're 18 or 19, even 22, there's a lot you just don't know, right? You just don't know. And so I don't even know if a young cat like that really can fully understand this reprogramming. Because you just haven't, if you were 40 years old, say you're 40 years old, right? And you went through something like boot camp, right? You would understand. Oh, I see what they're trying to do. Oh, that type of thing. So let's talk about boot camp, because it seems like that's the beginning of this mental and emotional, like, oh my goodness, what they're about to put you to or gear you up for.
Right. I mean, that's why they have a cutoff age-wise. They're not taking people, depending on the year and what's going on with recruitment, past 30, 32 years old, because it's very difficult to work with a grown up or a grown man or woman past a certain point. They're not going to be more conducive to the process of breaking down and building back up. And that's exactly what they do. They take everything that we naturally know from our society about self-preservation being rule number one, right? All of those things kind of go out the window. And as they're tearing you down, only to build you back up to this organism, this spoke in the wheel, this organic piece to a much larger machine that you play a role in, and you're important. Your service is important, be that as it may. But they make sure that you look like everybody else, you talk like everybody else, you're gonna walk like everybody else. It goes back to what you would question, Pastor D, about being a part of that fraternal order. We pick up a different language very quickly. We speak in acronyms and we talk in different degrees of where it can lose somebody from the civilian population very, very quick. So that's the process. So, some would say it's brainwashing. Some would say that it's taking away your individuality. I would agree with that second portion, because it is. You have to, one of the major things that we're taught from day one is selfless service. And so there is no individuality. I know as it pertains to the entire topic, and I'm going to shut up real quick after this, is that there is no care how you feel. Right? Not about how you feel.
Wow.
If you wanted feelings, we would have issued them to you, right, Person?
Hey, I'm with you.
Come on.
We do it so that boot camp is like you said, a life-changing event. What it does in some aspects, for those that have those selfless service qualities, after they shave off some of the what we call the world, they do come to the top. You know, the individual things that drive you will show up when times get tough. So that person that, and I heard in your intro, you grew up in a different type of neighborhood. You grew up, you know, those grew up who were labor, or like we always say in the South, who went to the field a little bit and worked with your hands sometimes. That would come out in a certain stage of basic training, because that boot camp of basic training was to take the individual, not totally destroy him that he's nothing, but we're going to take you all the way down to a certain level to build you up into this system or organism that we know you will benefit best in.
And so so all of this, I'm thinking about this, they're breaking them down. Let me, so from a civilian questioning standpoint, how much are they talking about? I mean, they're making you a soldier. So are they talking about war in particular? Are they talking about, you know, combat? I mean, you may have to take a life. Do they talk? Is that a conversation? Is that
Always.
Basic training is always geared towards that particular mission, because let's be honest, there's no other pinnacle mission that you're ever going to prepare for more so than combat. So whether you're combat support or your actual combat soldier, direct combat soldier, you're always being prepared for that one particular mission.
and how? And go ahead.
No, I was going to say the acronym says it best. Is basic combat training is what it is we start out with. And no matter who you are, you're going to get the basics of combat so that when you get out there, you're able to do what you need to do. So yes, we're going to always teach about, you know, if I use this word, let's be honest, we're going to teach you to kill.
And that is like, that's the word I wanted to use. And I didn't know if I would be, you know, kind of out of line by saying that, but I mean, I can't think of any other way. I mean, we're not saying you're going to go and watch a parking lot. I mean, it's like they're training y'all to go and fight another man who's trying to kill you, trying to, you know, that type of thing. So what's the kind of the percentage of those that don't make it? Is it a high percentage or kind of?
As far as the attrition rate, from day one, I would definitely defer to our drill sergeant in the room here, who could tell you averages, because he's pushed X amount of classes. I went through my one and went on, but you know, over the course of time and career and how many people cycle out, I mean, the turnover is very high. The turnover for the military in general is very high. I mean, there's a large room in the Pentagon with a lot of black server machines doing a lot of math calculations as to compute, you know, who's going to get out based off of time, based off of training, you know, different reports and so on and so forth, in order to keep the proper fill in the military. But from the very jump, you know, the attrition rate from basic training is relatively high.
And it's not just because they can't make it. Some, their bodies just break down. They're not able to do the physical portion of it. Some of them is mental. Some of them do quit or try to quit. So
what do you mean? What do you mean try to quit?
They may try to quit. You know, some people want to walk away and say this is not for them, but the job of the instructor, the drill instructor, is to take your quit and let you become, you know, take that quit and push you beyond the quit and let you know you can do it. It is a conditioning. When you say, when you first come in, and I'll break it down, like let's use a 9-week period. The first 3 weeks, you don't make a decision on your own. We tell you everything. The next 3 weeks, we may give you a little bit of decision making, but we still is on you. The last 9 weeks, we give you a lot of leeway to do more, but we never leave you out of supervision. So we are kind of grooming you to listen to everything I say, think a little bit, have a little more room. But we do this by teaching people who are not leaders to lead people that are not leaders.
And so, you know, going through this whole process, this remaking, rebuilding, retooling. So let's say that it is a very active wartime. All right, because so Vince, you said that you were, Pastor, you were the one, you said that you enrolled 6 months before
9/11.
Right. So from boot camp, how soon do you end up being deployed?
So it's 9 to 10 weeks for boot camp. And then you go into what we call advanced individual training, AIT. So dependent or contingent on whether that job that you picked is at the same location that you went to basic training, you'll do 1 station unit training and stay there, and depends on what the job is. So for infantry, it was another additional 14 weeks. For somebody like a linguist, it's 54 weeks. You know what I mean? And then, somebody like an MP, a supply clerk, or a cook, it could be a variance of another 20 weeks, a truck driver, something like that. So during the time, the heightened state from invasion of Iraq and the continuation of the mission stabilization, making sure that they got through their voting and all types of different things of those measures, 2001, 2008, 7, 8, 9, you could very well show up to a unit that within the 6 months that you got there, you're taking off. In the very height of it, I think, and KG can amen this, is that it was very rare that you show up and you be packed and going out the door right away. Sometimes you would be dependent, especially if it's a combat unit, an infantry unit, a tank brigade, scout brigade, something that was direct combat. You may have a moment where you're going to stay on rear detachment, but you would head out shortly thereafter. So in the very beginning, when we were in the very thick of it, shortly after the invasion, it could be anywhere as quickly as 3 months right after you finish basic training and advanced individual training. But generally, it's going to be, probably about a year once you get yourself set in your unit.
About a year. About a year, huh? Yeah. And I'm
about to finish. Yeah.
And you know what? It's funny because as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, I don't know if a year is enough time to prepare somebody to go into another country. It just like
and do violent things. And there's not enough time. There's not enough time to do any of that. No, there's never enough time to really wrap your mind around it. They can tell you what it's going to be like. I mean, like KG said, he had uncles in Vietnam. And Vietnam, I mean, to me was, again,
yes,
we won't go political, but that was a war. I mean, I couldn't imagine being in the jungle and dealing with the things that they were dealing with, being ambushed and so on and so forth. And then the amount of death and the numbers and the casualties that they faced and so on and so forth. And everything from the napalm and the IEDs before they were IEDs. So that was a different type of war. Same thing with World War II and so on and so forth. And a lot of them couldn't really endure, see the things that we were dealing with now, the level of the technology of the equipment, the heaviness of it, and so on and so forth. So every warrior and every veteran has a respect for each respective war. But it's just like we as preachers. I can't ask you how you study to prepare to work. We all get it differently. So we're all going to respond differently when we get on ground and when the reality of our circumstance set in. Now, the only thing that's common in that circumstance is that we're all here together.
Yeah. So let me now kind of maybe transition into the deployment. Okay. What's going through somebody's mind when they know, because you guys deployed multiple times, when okay, I'm now leaving U.S. soil and I'm going where it's hot. What's going through your mind?
Can I say this too, Pastor D? I don't mean to back up just a little bit because Vincent said something and it registered to me. When I was a drill sergeant, my flight out of Germany was on 9/11. My original flight was on a 9/11. So I left Germany going to Jackson to be a drill sergeant. So you can imagine training those soldiers to prepare to go to war. And we had plenty of people that joined the Army for the service from New York and all of those places. And their word was, I got to do something. So we had those type of people that joined to just say, I got to do something.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was there, the tour was supposed to be 2 years. I ended up doing 3.5 years because of the cycle. I couldn't get out of it.
Right.
Because we were there to train soldiers to go to units to go to war, and they wouldn't let us go. So I got extended an extra 1.5 years to be a drill sergeant, which is not even, that shouldn't be. But anyway, that
You know that shouldn't, when you say that shouldn't be what, just because of the
stress.
intensity of it. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're 16-hour days every day.
Wow.
And it's you're a total, just like being deployed. My wife didn't see me. I woke up early, left the house while they were asleep. When I came back home, they were asleep.
It's not an 8-hour gig when you're in this preparation process of a human being. It's labor intensive for the human beings who are dismantling and putting back together these human beings. So like he said, I mean, I'm there before they wake up, and I'm there well after they go to bed. So he's not exaggerating in the fact that, you know, he's doing 16s.
Yeah.
And he's doing
I wake them up and put them to bed. Yeah, you wake them up and put them to bed.
Wow.
Wake them up and tuck them in. That's right.
Let me ask this, Pastor Kelsey. So you were a drill sergeant in Germany?
In Fort Jackson here in Columbia. I mean in South Carolina.
Well, so when you were in Germany, what were you?
I was just a regular doing my normal duty. That's when I deployed to Kosovo, but yes.
Okay, and then you came to be a drill sergeant. So the preparing people for that. Let me ask you, number one, did you see some cats you're like, ain't no way in the world this cat can make it over there? Like I'm nervous if we deploy this one right here, it's gonna be some problems.
Wow, that's a good one. Let me go ahead and put on my badge back on. I didn't believe there's nobody I couldn't train that wasn't ready, but that's not true. Because there was such a push for numbers, and I'll be honest with you that by the end of my tour there, we were pushing numbers. Not to say we cut back on standards, but if I couldn't do it and a soldier couldn't make it in my time, they just recycled him to another unit so that he could catch up and actually get the training. So if I couldn't do it, I shuffled them to Pastor, Drill Sergeant Vincent. If Drill Sergeant Vincent couldn't do it, he shuffled them over to Drill Sergeant D. And this process will keep going until they pass the gate and were able to get to their unit, unless something happened that they just could not, physically make it. But our job during that time, especially after 9/11, was to get numbers and boots on the ground in Iraq.
How many people would you say that you kind of were instrumental in preparing and getting over there?
We had in my unit, in my company, there's 250 soldiers every 9 weeks.
Wow. And you're just churning those over and sending them. And then do you in any way, shape, or form, is there any, like, where you're staying in contact with them in any way, shape, or form, or?
No, I ran into a few of them in Iraq.
Okay.
You'll come across a few soldiers, or they'll walk up and you say, "Hey, were you so-and-so? You were my drill sergeant here, there," and you'll speak to them. But there are a few soldiers that I do remember from basic training that, I'm not in contact with them now, but when I was I knew about their career path, because either you remember the great ones or the real bad ones. Those in between, because they passed the gate, you just doing your job.
Right. So now jump into the deployment. You all were deployed multiple times. What's going on through your mind when you know that you're heading over to hostile place?
Well, for me, first and foremost is the family all set up? Did you follow the process that they give you? Because again, let's be honest, it's a machine, and it's a well-oiled machine, and they make sure that everything is in place so that the soldier can go and focus. If something's out of order, it's because you left it out of order, right? So it really does tie into, one of the things we talked about yesterday as well, is how do you leave your family? What is this conversation that you have? Do you have all your paperwork in order, your will, your living will, all these different things? Does your wife know how to pay all the bills while you're gone? Access to the money, all those different things. Because when you get over there, there's nothing you can do about it. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So it's you and those 8 other guys in your platoon, or in your team, or in your line unit, that it's you guys, it's you 40 guys bunking together, making it in through 16, 18-hour days in and outside the wire. So you can't detach from that moment of where you're at. right? You got to say your goodbyes. You got to make sure all the preparation is done. You got to, make sure that you're standardizing the talk with the kids, albeit however little or young or old they are, and letting them know and grooming them for the process of being ready for you to not be there, to not do the tuck-ins, to not do the good nights and all those other different things, but then also that the calls are going to become far and few in between. And so it is a huge mentality shift. I used to describe it when I was asked this frequently during my service and then starting ministry. You get there and it doesn't become real. It's like and I don't know if KJ give me on this one. It's like it doesn't become sobering and real to a prisoner or to somebody who's messed up that's going to jail until those bars close. Well, it doesn't get sobering and real to you as a soldier till you load on that last LMTV, which is a huge pickup truck, and they drive you out to your forward operating base, and then that truck drives off on you. That's when it gets real. And that truck drives off, and you realize that truck ain't coming back for 12 months, 9 months, 15 months. It just got real.
So when you deploy, you just prepare. I'm gonna be gone for months, away from my kids, away from my wife, away from all the homies, all that kind of stuff. I'm just gonna be gone.
Yeah, that's the only way you can think about it.
That's it.
No other way.
That's it. And then, yes, sir. And then immediately after this, I don't want to die here. Immediately after that,
wow,
I don't want to die here. And what are they serving in chow hall?
Yeah. And I'll change that word. It's not that I don't want to die. I'm not going to die. Because that's the mentality that most soldiers have when you're over there. I'm not going to die. Now, we'll talk about when we get back, when we return, there's a different terminology we use when we get back that it doesn't fit into that category. But while we're there, I don't know anybody just wanting to. I didn't even think about dying. That was the last thing on my mind.
So the way that and see, it's probably so common to you all, but so for me as a civilian, what I just heard, the way that I hear it is like by any means necessary, I'm coming back home.
Yes.
So if it's me or somebody else, it's going to be somebody else.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you're talking about combat or your direct combat individual, tanker, infantryman, scout, artilleryman, I mean, is it going to be my child or another child? Is it going to be a woman? Is it going to be my, going back to my wife? Is it going to be this man or is it my brother? So you've got to rationalize those things. And if you're talking about invasion, you're talking about going to another country. And this is where it's crazy because we see it on the news here, where violence breaks out, and we're so appalled on the news. So if you want to say it in this way, Americans, would it happen is very unlikely. But the reality is, we live in such a bubble and such a sphere here in America, and that's the whole premise of what our service is about. So that way, we don't even have to acknowledge that men have to do bad things on your behalf so you can sleep well at night, right? So
yeah.
We're in another country driving down the wrong way in a very large multi-ton vehicle that's armored that you have no chance of stopping us. And we're just doing whatever we want to do.
Breaking every rule. We don't
breaking every rule, rendering your government useless. We're just here and we're not leaving until we feel like we've accomplished what we want. So, you're talking about invasion. Imagine that. Imagine you're on 15 out there in California. You're on 95 over here on the East Coast, and a tank is rolling down the road, running cars off the road. I mean, so it you see it on the news, but it's a whole different thing, in real time, and to see it in real time. By the way, they're not showing certain things to you all that we're experiencing, that we're seeing. So it is a mind shift. It is a mindset, and it's the shift that you have to go through. But more importantly, to accomplish what Pastor KG said, I'm not going to die here. I used to add to, I'm not going to die in this armpit of a country. I'm going home. Right? I'm going home. I'm hoping I'm going home the way I came. But if we be really honest, and we're starting to go into the portion about deployment and then the mental health piece, we all go home just a little bit less than the way that we went.
Yeah, you have to. I can't see any other way. I can't see. I mean, you talk about going somewhere where you're not welcome, where you're not wanted, where where you got to do whatever you got to do. I mean, so one of the gentlemen that I work with that went over to the Middle East, he talked about the difficulty, for instance, of dealing with children. You can't just say, hey, that's a kid, because you just don't know what they have, what they're going to do. He talked about how you can't tolerate like even something like throwing rocks, because because you don't know what else may be coming your way, what else may be. See, that's the kind of stuff that we don't see necessarily in the movies or the hype videos or whatever the case may be, having to make those decisions about civilians of another city. So for a young man, what is that? What's going on?
Well, I think like I would do for the soldiers that I have, I did not allow them to befriend anyone but soldiers. Now you got to think the country is kind of, we're trying to be political with them also. So some of them are doing their part on the installation, depends on where you are, and sometimes they will befriend some of these people. And I'm not against them, but I always said, hey, you don't know who you're messing with. And you find out later that they are a spy for their own hometown. Because we would do the same thing if somebody invaded our country. So the way that I protected myself and I tried to do with my soldiers, I wouldn't let them befriend anyone. I didn't befriend any of them. I refused to even get close to them, because I'm not sure what you're going to do to me when the lights are off and when my back is turned. So you're always on edge about who you're dealing with and what you're dealing with, who's around you. So that 18-year-old, kid that's over there, you have to keep pushing that into his mindset, because it becomes Groundhog Day when they're doing the same thing over and over again. You become relaxed. And as soon as you become complacent, that's when you become a statistic.
And that's what I was going to ask you. How many times do you see people kind of let their guard down?
I mean, easily. I mean, it's the monotony of it. So if you're a combat soldier, you're going on tour, you're a quick reactionary force. So you might be the crew that gets called out. You're on sniper overwatch of a mission. You have a special stateside dignitary there who's coming to do a mix and mingle with somebody who's important, a Sikh or somebody like that. You're providing security for that. We've had violence, or we've got intel that there's a cache of weapons and there's a small holdout of insurgents in this particular portion. So now we have to go in and get it. And now, I mean, we're talking about anything from riding around on IED duty, which is like we're just out here triggering bombs to blow up.
Wow,
that's really, bad straw to draw. But then there's also like we're going to go into a stronghold where nobody in this particular neighborhood particularly likes us or cares for us, and try to kill us. We got to go in there and try to root out 3, 4, 5 guys plus all the bad stuff that they've got. So it's now at this particular point in time, again, from that very day that pickup truck drives off and the moon dust from the sand clouds the area and coats your skin, you realize I'm in this thing. I'm in this thing. Whatever it's going to take for me to get out of this thing, I'm in this thing. Whoever, whenever, however, I got to get down. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get out of here. And more importantly, at the monotony, Pastor D, the thing that keeps you locked in, because I can't say I'm fighting for my wife, I'm fighting for my kids. In the grander scope, I can't say I'm fighting for your freedom. Yeah, I got it. But there was days that I'd be in the thick of it. We'd be in a firefight, been going on for an hour. We've had to call for backup. People, things that happen all over the place. And you realize I'm just in it with the guy to the left and right of me. We're all in here right now. We're all in the gunfire. I just want to get Billy back to his family. I look over and I look to my left, but his right shoulder is facing me, and this little red, white, and blue piece of fabric. The idealism behind it. Like, I'm fighting for this reason.
Wow.
I'm fighting for this person. I'm fighting for who's in the thick of it with me right now. And so there's such a major mind shift. And so it goes back to what we had said previously. You're going to leave change every single time you go and you come, you go and you come. And in those first few years, growing up at a infantry post, it used to be called Fort Benning, but it's now called Fort Moore. And in the throat, first 6.5 years out of my first 8 years, I'm gone. Consistent, gone. And if I'm not in the field, I'm deployed. So it's just a lot. It's just a lot, but of course, it's interesting that the show that we're on, the platform that we all serve in now, and the team that I'm a part of now, but God.
Yeah.
And I think, Vincent, you said something that had just resonated with me when I was just, you have those moments you think back. And Pastor D, one of the hardest things that when you're talking about that 18, and not just 18, but the complacency over there, is when you lose a soldier because they didn't do what they were trained. That's when
explain that, because
that's I can use I can name a few, but I'll just use this one. For when you're being what we call indirect fire, or your installation is getting bombed from the enemy, one of the first things you do is lay on the ground. You get as low as you possibly can, get in a duck and cover. But when you hear bombs every day and you're kind of like, oh, well, it's just another bomb. Well, we lost some soldiers because 15, 16 of us in the same area, everybody laid on the ground except one soldier that tries to run into the building, and it hit the top of the door they were running into. And everybody who laid on the ground from about 2 feet above looks like, cheese. Everybody was 2 feet and below survived. Only thing that person had to do was lay down. And so complacency will make you think that you have time to do this or do that. And that is the hardest part, because you look at that person and you say, man, why didn't you just do what you were taught to do? Because complacency will bring you into a place that you think you don't have to do the same thing. Pastor Vincent started touching on it. We can bring that all the way back into church. We do something for so long, we become complacent with doing it. And then the next thing we know, we find ourselves in danger because we became comfortable with it.
That's good,
and
sir.
You forget that you're always in a war.
Wow. Always in a war.
Always.
And the difference here, for a civilian is you may lose your job, right? Or something like that. But you all literally saw people lose their lives because they let their guard down, didn't follow direction. So let me ask you, when you're in this, you're talking about a firefight, all that kind of stuff. The first time you all may have saw somebody die. I know that may be some time ago. What was going through your mind? That's somebody you knew, somebody you conversated with, somebody you trained with, and then now they're not going home.
Well, I mean, it's a tough thing to say, and generally speaking, but we're in a space where we're gonna keep it real, right? There's the first thing. You really want to know what the first thing is, Pastor D? Is a relief that it wasn't me.
Wow, that's real. That's real,
honest, right? When you've been in countless firefights, countless exchanges and engagements, you know the difference between if it was close or not because it cracked or whistled while it went by your head. I'm talking about the thick of it. And you've seen it. You've seen enough memorials. You've seen enough boots and dog tags and upside down rifles with helmets mounted on it. Like we all seen the pictures like we just did on Memorial Day. I've been more memorials than I've been to actual Western funerals with wakes and caskets and all of that.
Now, say that again, because you said that yesterday. Explain what you just said.
So, we all saw this past Monday, everybody saying, Happy Memorial Day, which, by the way, everybody who's watching at home, that's not the proper way to say it. It's not happy. We're memorializing, so it's more solemn, right? But we all saw the picture that's depicted, the soldier who's bending the knee and bowing and praying before the boots, the upside down M16 rifle with the dog tags hanging off of the trigger well, and then the helmet mounted on top of the buttstock. I've been to more of those memorials in theater in real time, the next day after a KIA, than I've been to more actual Western funerals.
Wow. So that's the process there. So if somebody dies, the next day you're doing that.
The next day you're going to acknowledge it. You're not going to wait. There's no wake. There's no anything. These guys are going to go. They're going to go to mortuary affairs. After we go, whether we have to fight to retrieve them, go and pick them up. They're going to mortuary affairs. and then we're going to acknowledge them the next day because we have to deal with it.
We got to keep fighting.
Yeah,
we're not going to get on. And that's the part that they, you know, for the senior leadership, that's the part that you have to put together. And then you send them, you know, we have things in place for the family and all of that to happen. But most people don't understand the whole process of when someone loses their life over there. There's no internet. If there was internet or communication, it all stops. Because the last thing you can do is have somebody send a message to someone else that so-and-so died and we never did contact the family.
It's shut down until the loved ones get it right.
Everyone is notified. So sooner or later, your family will learn the pattern of what is going on over there. So when my wife want to, you know, send me an email, but it doesn't come through, now she's on edge because the internet only shuts off when something happens.
Wow.
So now what we're talking about, the mental that goes on, and I know we're going there with the family, they learned the pattern of war.
Wow.
So we're doing so many things that are going on, but then like Vincent said, for that soldier that's there, you see him, you know, you thank God that it wasn't you, but for me, I'm a little upset because you think there's something you could have done that could have prevented it, but you strap up, you shed a tear, and then you move on.
That is, again, I think because you guys have been in it, literally. You're not talking theory. You all literally have been in it, experienced that type of thing. It sounds so not normal. I mean, but it like normalized for a military person. Like, hey, that's just what we do. As a civilian, that doesn't even. I can't wrap my head around that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know,
right.
And because one thing, like, okay, somebody passes away, we had a really dear member that had been in our ministry a long time, part of our executive team. She passed away with COVID, man, and it was just so difficult. It was a shock, right? And so maybe the concept of, okay, things continue, but like you guys are like, we got to keep fighting, not just like we got to go to work. We literally got to keep like fighting. That right there, I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I mean, that's our version of you got to get back to work. You got to get back to work. And I mean, and the worst version of that is if you're outside the wire, you lose somebody early off in a mission, but the fight is still going on. You got to evac them alive, hurt, injured, and then get back in it.
Angry while you're doing it. So you see soldiers that are totally angry now. They're not just fighting for mission, they're fighting to revenge.
Right. Now we're unsettled, we're not focused. Yeah.
It's a total different mindset when you lose a fellow comrade in any aspect.
That piece right there is something right there. I mean, there's one thing if you're fighting, you know you're training, you're fighting to stay alive, you're fighting to win the war. But now I'm just so mad. And then so when somebody gets in that place, I mean, do they end up being reckless? Does it end up being going overboard sometime? When you kind of get in that, because I would think for me, I know that when I get angry, let me say this. I've grown, I've matured a lot. the younger me, the younger Dominic, when I got angry, I got really reckless and all that kind of stuff, right? And so I'm just trying to imagine like trying to focus while I'm angry that so-and-so got killed.
But that's the conditioning that people don't understand about those that serve. We are trained to function in all types of environment. When you're angry, when you're sick, when you're hurt, when you're injured, we still focus to get the mission done. And then now it's on the leadership of that crew to keep that anger within bounds, because you don't want them to shut it off, because truthfully, a little bit of anger in there gonna help you get out of this fight.
Wow.
Yeah. A little bit. So I don't want to lose his emotion. I just want to control it so that that person doesn't do anything reckless to cause injury to anyone else.
Right.
Because all of us are mad. So perhaps I'll use Vincent or anybody, myself as a leader. You're just as mad, but you got to be mad on the inside and calm on the outside so that you can keep control of everything that's going on. And for us, and I'll just say for myself, when I get back home, that never changed. I don't realize that I'm messed up on the inside because I'm trained to remain calm on the outside so that everything around me remains in order.
Well, and I love what you just said there, Kelsey, because it hits a very point. There is a numbing as you're adapting and overcoming. It's a big thing that we're taught in the process from basic training going forward, how to adapt and overcome.
Yes.
I'm now a part of my beloved civilian organization and world again. But let's be honest, as Americans, we don't do that well. We don't adapt and overcome well at all, to much at all. So to learn that and learn it in the most heightened of physical situations and stressful situations, it eventually begin to take the edges off. It kind of numbs you to certain things. But again, God wastes nothing, right? So it's interesting how my wife helped me in the process of getting past the stages of PTSD and coming into the kingdom and serving. I know we're going there. We're going to talk about that, but she helped me to understand that about God's word. He's not going to waste anything. So even where you're numb and you've had these different experiences about death that most people haven't, he's still going to be able to use that in the good. So I'm not going to be the one that's going to show up and not be the pillar of faith and strength in the time of where most people are like, look, I'm just a wreck, because you've experienced that at that height. You would want and hope that God would take experiences like that. And even that, what somebody would define in the psychological or therapy field as numb, as bad, depending on the soldier, depending on who it is. But I would want, me personally, I want somebody like Kelsey who's been in the stuff. If the stuff hits the fan, I want somebody in there with a plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me ask this question to kind of combine the time over there. So one thing I think you guys define it. I hope you all heard this. When earlier I talked about being a combat soldier. So so you just heard what a combat soldier is. Somebody being in the thick of things. I mean, in the stuff that we see on video games, these cats are doing. The stuff that we're watching in the action part of the military movie, like they're doing it, except for it's real screams, real blood, real bombs, real all that kind of stuff. Let me ask this question to combine this, and then I want to transitioning out, coming home, because what people are, what it's like, there's no way in the world you can do that for years and then come back in this, especially in America. Like Pastor Mitch just said, we so soft in America, but we just, the internet's out, right?
Those your words. You said soft. I say soft with 2 T's, but I want you.
Hey, listen, I've been around guns, but I had nobody shooting at me. So I you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna admit that. I ain't trying to be man, listen, I ain't been in all that kind of stuff. All right, let me say that. You know what I'm saying? You label it whatever you want to label it. I'm just saying. But let me ask this right here. Injuries, you talking about being sick. What about homesick? All that stuff. The Dear John letter, I need you to address that real quick. All of that stuff, right? How is that dealt with? What are people thinking? I mean, so like say you're sick. I know I feel silly even asking that.
Yeah, there's no hey Sergeant, First Sergeant Goodson, I don't feel well today. I'm gonna call, and he's gonna come over to that hooch and drag you out, and you better take this ibuprofen, aka Ranger Candy, and get back on patrol, Jack. That's it. Right.
You're gonna go to the aid station, but even the aid station know that they're not going to do anything. They're going to send you back out there. We're all in this together. That you go if you want to. I know the captains, most of the doctors or PAs that's there. So when you come in there, they'll say, Top, he good. He'll be back out there in 30 minutes.
Wow. Right. Let's make it completely plain for him, KG. The only way you're leaving theater outside of that truck that dropped you off that will be back for you in 12 months is loss of life, limb, or eyesight. Otherwise, you're not leaving.
Wow.
You either going to have
even if you snap stupid and they got to take your weapon, they're going to give you a rubber one and let you work on the installation. You're not leaving.
What?
You're not leaving. They're not going to give you a rubber one. I've seen it though, KG. It's funny.
Yeah.
But you're not leaving. You're gonna go serve food. You're gonna do something in this man's
Take all
army.
your ammo or something. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're not going, you're not leaving, even if you have so let me use the term mental breakdown. You have a breakdown, right? So I mean, so the folks ever get to that point to right, like they're so like homesick. I mean, you miss this, you miss graduations, you miss prom, you miss some folks missing their child being born. That stuff. How are people dealing with that stuff? Is it they ever get to the point like I can't take it, I got to get home, or are they just know are they thinking it and they don't say it, or what?
Well, I mean, there's certain things that you got to pull on, certain things, regulations that you got to go to in extremes, but they're career enders. You know what I mean? You know, I'm a conscientious objector all of a sudden. I woke up and I just can't do it no more. Like silly stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there's people that became unsafe, but it again, like KG said, he had to have an extensive and lengthier time where he had to stay on that trail to keep pumping out soldiers for the good of keeping the numbers up in the war zone and keeping soldiers in the units. Well, it's the same thing. In the earlier, in the thick of it, not knowing what plan we had and how long we were going to be there, you know, nobody went. And as time got better, leave got better, people got to actually make it for graduations and birth. So I want to make sure that everybody's that's listening knows that over the course it got better. But in the
yes,
in the throes of it, in the first 2 or 3 years, no, there was none of that. There was none of that. But over the course of time, it got better because they also realized that, listen, we'll burn these guys out. We'll burn these guys out. But ultimately, you have to be able to compartmentalize all of those different things. And I know that you want to get to the Jody letter. So I'm just going, but separate and apart for instances like that, you got to be able to compartmentalize. One of the things I would tell myself doing stuff like EIB or different tasks, everybody's everywhere where they're supposed to be right now. And it's going to be all right. And then I just stopped worrying about everything else and everybody else, except for what I'm doing in that moment. And that was going on patrol. That was doing PT on the fob. That was whatever it had to be in that moment. Everybody's everywhere where they're supposed to be, you know. And realistically, at least for me as a combat soldier, more times than deployed, more times than not, it was at least they're home and they're safe, and I'm here.
So when you say that everybody's where they're supposed to be, you're talking about back home.
Right.
Yeah, like tell yourself that, even though you didn't know that, you had to tell yourself it's all good back home.
Yeah, because you hear the horror stories and you witness the horror stories of, you know, the soldier that thinks everybody's in place back home, but ain't nobody in place. So you tell yourself that, and you don't. Man, I'm telling you, this mental state that we are in war, you don't ask questions you don't want to hear the truth. You know, the answer, the truth about. So I just don't ask the question.
Okay, so now
don't ask the question.
So I need you to deal with this dear John letter, because I need all the civilians to understand.
It's Jody.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I need the civilians to understand what our men and women go through and what they deal with, so that we can chill. We can go to the movies. We can go to the mall. We can. What they're dealing with.
Yeah.
What they're dealing with, so that we can chill. I need everybody to understand that. So you said, dear Jody, can you please, because this blew my mind.
Okay.
And a whole other phrase I didn't think about. You serving, and here it comes this.
We call it the Dear John letter, and the person that's writing it, maybe we call him Jody sometime. But this happens sometimes with married people or those that are deployed, that the spouse moves on, and they send that, you know, that the spouse that's deployed a letter saying, I have moved on. I'm doing this, and when you come home, we're not going to be here. And we've had the, you know, let's say it was the wife that was back in the States, and the gentleman she's messing with sent a letter, or the equipment that they've been performing with in the letter to prove that, hey, I got yours. And now you're asking this same soldier, after you receive that, hey, yeah, you got that. You deal with that when you get back in 6 months.
See so that for the civilian, we can't even wrap our head around that.
No.
So for the folks that kind of went over your head.
Yeah, it's low.
The wife is at home hooking up with the dude, and the dude writes a letter or sends something to let them know, I got your girl. So if that happens in the middle of your deployment, I got a doggone another maybe 6 months before I can even probably think about addressing that and going.
And they're probably not thinking about addressing it. They're probably thinking about using their training.
Okay. So now so we talked about boot camp. We talked about the retooling, the training the person to be a machine, a killer, training the person to block out, to be able to see a fellow soldier literally get murdered, get killed, and then still keep going, and all that kind of stuff. And all these things, fight hurt, fight sick, all that kind of stuff, all that kind of miss birthdays, miss. Did either one of y'all miss your kids' birthdays?
Oh yeah.
Twice in the same year.
Yeah.
And couldn't communicate with them at the time?
Not really.
Yeah. So missing all that. So they're over there fighting all that kind of stuff. So now it's time to come home. Now it's time to come home. What is the de-escalation process?
Yeah. Okay. So early off, we'd stop off in Kuwait for 2 weeks. They disarm you. They kind of let you run around in the middle of the desert, blow off steam kind of thing. They got a movie tent, let you stay up late, the commissary stocked with snacks, kind of let you veg out and get back. But you're out there, by the way, in tents in the middle of the desert. Now, when things was really good, you transitioned back to Doha, but you weren't around anybody. You weren't of any threat to anybody. And that was their process of kind of de-escalating and processing down.
Give you some candy and let you watch a movie.
Pretty much, right? Like throttling down as much as. Oh, yeah.
You've been shooting and being shot at. You've been bombs dropping all the time.
Right? There's some Pringles and some Reese's, melted Reese's. Have at it. You're going home though, right? Like in the end, we're going home. We going home. We're going back to the world. We're going home. And I really hope that we're going to the next part about what happens when we get home. But in your mind, then the 2 weeks of throttling down, we're going home. So it's like, yeah, did that. It's done. Going home. Yeah, baby. Right? So, but now you actually go home.
Now but you all talked about something, how folks are going home, but then there's conversations behind the scenes determining who's coming back.
Oh yeah. We were talking about how the turnover is so fast that those, especially the senior leadership, we start counting heads for who's going to return within the next 8 months of coming back. So we're already plotting, hey man, this person can't leave. This person, we don't want this person to leave, this leader to leave. I mean, you're seeing what your unit is going to look like in the next 8 months. And because we're in deployment, we know who's leaving. We just call up there and say, hey, who's on orders? Hey,
wasn't nothing like the good old stop loss.
Yeah. Oh, now, yeah.
Come on, baby, let them know. Stop loss. They actually made a movie about that. Stop loss.
What is that?
That
where
means
they stopped you from losing. They stopped you as losing you from personnel from the unit. So it's a stop loss, meaning that you're not transitioning. Nobody leave. Nobody move.
So you could go as far as thinking you're going home.
No. You're not home. Getting out of the military or leaving your current duty station. That means stop loss. Like I got caught in the stop loss. When I couldn't retire. I wasn't going to retire, but at that moment I wasn't. But I got caught in the stop loss.
Where they tell you can't.
Oh, you can't go home.
I wasn't retiring. Canceled.
Can't go home. And in a different version of it, it happened 3 different times, 3 different units. Units weren't prepared to deploy to theater. So you get home, they let you come all the way home. Then you're sitting on a tarmac, and it's like 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And I happen to be one of those units out of one of those tours. And we're an infantry unit. We're coming home. We cycle back out of theater. And then you get there, and then like, okay, why are we not getting on the plane? Like, what's happening? And you start hearing rumblings of certain things. And it happened once before it happened. We were the middle one, and it happened to another brigade afterwards. But then they were like, no, we need you to refuel and go back to theater because this unit is not prepared to deploy. And so you go back, and you go back for another 3 months.
That happened to
That,
us.
that
too.
that has to be. I mean, okay. So what was going on in your mind? You're thinking it's, I'm gonna get a timeout, whatever, and it's literally like right now you're going back for another few months. What's and did your family think you were coming home and they were all excited? And so you have to make that call and like, I won't be back.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't make that.
Well, rank has its privileges. For me, when we deployed, it was already a rumor that we were going to do 15 months.
Right.
So, because, the senior leadership was like, hey, man, this is going on. You have 15 months. So for me, I was already mentally preparing myself for this 15-month deployment. So you kind of start massaging your soldiers a little bit. Hey, if you don't get home by Christmas, you're going to.
You
might have to do. But it was already known.
I really want in this moment, Kelsey, just to let it, let it soak into everybody's shine on for a minute. Like 15 months.
15 months. Yeah.
In a place that the only experience that I can give you and define it or illustrate it is turn your oven on to 400 and let it get nice and hot. And then get your wife's hair dryer and then start blowing it on high in your face. And then go get some sand from outside. And then when you're good and sweaty, stand in front of the oven, throw it on your face and let it stick. That's what it's like over there. And you're going back. You're going to stay there for 15 months.
And that's a light description there, Vince. So
I'm trying to be gentle here, right? And I use colorful language.
Yeah.
Wow. So now
do it.
So now you've gone through it, you did everything, but now you literally are coming home. Okay. Coming home, and now you are home. What is going on?
Look, can I go ahead? I'm gonna walk you through this process, Pastor D, just a little bit so you can understand this great greeting we're gonna have when we get home. And I can only talk about my last duty station. So Vincent talked about the candy and the peanuts and chips that we kind of, bringing us down, but it's really not it's not true, because I think they take all of your ammo except for one magazine or something like that, because you're still in a foreign country where people can hurt you. So when you get on this plane ride back home, like where I was at Fort Hood, we have our own airport. So you land there. Once you get off the plane, they take your weapons and everything from you. You count them up. So, I'm a leader. So we're counting up the weapons, make sure all of the weapons are turned in. Then they put you on the bus. When they put you on the bus, they're kind of, prior to you getting on that bus, they already have your family members at the parade field ready, waiting for you. So the method is this. It's like a 5-minute process. The buses pull up, they block you and the family members. They're between you and the family members. You line up in a mass formation. The buses move. You march out on this big field. The general says a few words, and then they say, go greet your family member. So you run and locate your family member, and that's the welcome home. Now, just imagine for the person that left someone home, but now they're at the parade field and no one's there to greet them.
Wow.
Right.
Or you're the person that it's been stressful, and you looking at the person that didn't support you while you were over there, but that's the person you're driving home, and it feels foreign to get in your car again.
Oh yeah. I mean, the reintegration is real. I mean, I don't think this person's watching anyway, but I forgot to tell you yesterday, dude, somebody brought a whole house in my name when I was going, like real rap, a whole house.
Okay. Like, oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You know what I mean? There's so much, and clearly we're running out of time. We don't have time. I know our viewers is like, really? You got to tell me more about it. Bought a whole house
in your name.
Like, hey, welcome back to your new home. I didn't buy this. Oh, it's in your name though. Thanks for your service.
You give power of attorney over to your spouse or your significant other. And I mean, my story, my first deployment was when my wife really understood how to operate the bills and everything. Because I mean, it may not sound as good coming from me, but I controlled and balanced the books. I mean, it wasn't like I was holding everything, but I was the hands-on person with it. When I left, she took over and I never got it back.
And so that reintegration, so you're talking about everything from finances to how the house is being governed, right? You're talking about everything from who's cooking, who's doing. The reintegration process is so serious. And of course, because you're all go, no quit, can't stop, when you come home, now you're trying to figure out, where do I fit in to the ebbs and flows, to the rhythms, the unforced rhythms of their life. And so now you've got, I'm this macho man, I just came from a deployment area, but I can't even really fit in here as dad and father, like, until I'm tapped in. So there's those things, like, I'm a great soldier. I just came from serving my nation for 12 or 15 months, but how do I fit back in the house that's in my name, and the family that's running around here looking like me, and the wife that belongs to me, the kids that that are my kids. And then that's just your everyday getting up and going down, sunrise, sunset. But let alone now, how do you go to the mall? How do you function around other people who have no concept, no clue about what you just did, and see all of these different things, as we talked off in the top? And I know one of the major components that we're talking about covering when you're talking about soldiers and vets and active duty, National Guard, whatever the case may be, and the totality of our experience, family, is that PTSD portion. Yes, those are the things that really express or can open the door to that, right? And the emotions that come with it. And of course, we've seen the stories, we've heard the horror stories, especially on the news, because anything that's graphic and can capture that 15-minute cycle is what they give you. And the different things of how we act out because of those things, and the anger that comes from the PTSD that's fueled. But these are just some of these things, and we're just nipping the top of the iceberg.
Right. I know that we can't completely uncover it. Just but let me maybe ask this question: how difficult was it to trust when you came back in the States?
Trust who?
Who?
Being in the mall.
Oh no, dude, not now.
Yeah, I still don't.
Not now. You know what I mean? Everybody's suspect.
Yeah, and that's a true statement. I'm telling you, Pastor D, that trust factor of large crowds is real.
Because you've just been so programmed for so long that somebody. So when you were over there, somebody trying to kill you. That was just the mentality. And so now you come, especially. Let me ask this question, and definitely would, as believers, we're not malice in our hearts or anything like that. You're in the Middle East, and it's war. You come over here to America. You see a Middle Eastern American. How was that adjustment?
Oh, okay.
I guess that answered. I guess that.
Again,
who's my brother?
Marvin Sapp saying, I'm older and I'm wiser now, right?
Yeah.
When you're a kid, when you're a young Thundercat, and your chest is all puffed out, and you're a tough guy. It is different, and it is different as far as how to separate, and how not to have those biases, right? But again, when you're older and you're smarter and you've been able to make it through those times, now in those moments, those were moments, those were real things, those were real feelings. Just as much as me seeing a parked vehicle broke down on the side of the road, in my mind, that's an IED. That's a real thing to me, right?
Wow.
So
a dead animal on the side of the street.
A dead animal, a bag of trash on the side of the road. What's that thing sitting in my yard? All of those things.
You said a dead animal, a trash and road. That's where they were hiding the IEDs?
Oh, yeah. So, the heightened sense of security is about everything, everyone, and every place that you go. It's not necessarily geared towards people who we just spent 15 months looking at, who, would be friendly in some instances, and in other instances wouldn't be friendly towards you. Downright rather violent towards you. But you come home and you realize, okay, and after a while, and after a time, it kind of subdues and fades. But especially if you're talking about the early portions of our career, it's no sooner than you downgrade, you're back at it again. But on this side, and thankfully we both made it through, we were able to come through that unscathed.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Something just dawned on me, and everything we went through, and I'll just speak for myself. It was bad, very bad. But I just want to give you some of the smiling points of being in Iraq. being in Baghdad, you know, that's modern day Babylon. And I had a chance to stand next to the Euphrates River, a river that's in the Bible. And I lost myself for about, a minute or two. And my soldier said, "Hey, Top, you know, this is the red zone. So, you know, you have to grab your stuff and get back." And I mean, I got out of the vehicle and stood next to the river like, man, this is, you know, this is Jesus water.
Right. Right.
Right. I mean, there's something special about being in the cradle of humanity. And
I grabbed the burden back then. Yeah, I picked it up in my hand and rubbed. And, you know, you think about it because of where I was in my walk, but that's because of where I was in Christ. The soldier that has no idea didn't see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the plus, but still, it was the same stress.
You know what? I appreciate that last piece, Kelsey, because you just brought to back to my remembrance. I was a heathen, Pastor D, for my first 5 tours. I mean, if we don't think God's grace is real, okay? I was a straight heathen for the first 5 combat tours. I didn't get saved until that last tour.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't doubt that God got something planned for your life.
Yeah. So let me ask this one question, because we could talk, man, for a few hours about this.
It's late over here, though, man.
Yesterday, and Pastor Kitts, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, just so they can understand the training, maybe that portion, right? The training, and then just the trust, because even as a civilian, listen, I'm like what my bishop said. Our money said, your money says the God you trust. Everybody else you thoroughly investigate. I don't trust people. I just don't. It's just, even for me, when I go into a restaurant, I don't like to sit with my back, you know what I'm saying, to the entrance and all that kind of stuff, right? All that kind of stuff, right? For me, it's just that's what it is. Y'all have a reason. Y'all have a reason to be that way. But yesterday when we were meeting, the 3 of us were meeting, y'all, Pastor Kelsey was outside. I saw him do this every few minutes. Every few minutes. How much of that is just from your experience in the military?
All of it.
All of it.
It's always there.
And not only experience in the military, being in combat.
Being in combat.
It makes a difference. Because and I want to make sure everybody understand this. And we have this way of speaking in the military. You know, we say, man, this is a combat soldier. But let me let everybody know this. Me and Vincent talks about the combat soldier. There is a difference from being deployed. But if a soldier has never deployed, he's under the same stress as somebody being deployed. Because unless you have ever been on rear detachment, you don't understand the pressure those soldiers have to get you everything you need to survive. They don't sleep either. They're up at all times of night because there's a time difference. They're answering phones and talking to the unit over there at different times, and their spouses and their families are going through it with them because they're up at crazy hours all of the day. They're trying to ship stuff to you. They're making sure things are right. So yes, there's a stress around every soldier that participates in any form of fashion to support what we call the war when we were there. So I definitely don't want us to sound like there were 2 different armies, because it's not. If you ain't never been on real detachment, it is hectic for those people that are back there. And there are soldiers that lost their families because of their support to those soldiers that were So it's, man, everybody plays a part. And I always say this I told my soldiers this when they had them. I say, hey, man, just because you outside the wire, don't act like you're above the soldier that is in finance. Because the moment that your wife can't pay the bill, you're going to be in front of that soldier begging them to make sure everything is correct. Or you don't like the cook because the cook don't have to go outside the wire, but it's a difference when you come in and there's nothing to eat. So everybody plays a vital part in this survival. And I think the thing that we miss, and I know we're going into the spiritual part of it, everybody got to play their part. No one is bigger than the next person. You just got to know to play your part to the fullest. And we all can make it if everyone plays their part.
That's right. What is it, gents? No big I and little you, right? I mean, just even from a Men and Women Lives Number Don't statistics perspective, You know, what KG was just talking about is the combat supporter that's even local or even detached. You know, that's 14 to 1. So for every guy out there pulling the trigger, there's 14 people supporting that one guy.
Wow.
And
wow.
so you're talking about, you know, a direct link and connection from the mail guy, the water guy, the mechanic, the cook, that all make sure that that one guy can be out there pulling the trigger. So again, we can learn a very realistic lesson from even what we're sharing with you from our days in the military. Ultimately, I don't want anybody to leave out of this, Pastor D, thinking that, man, you know, that just really sounds like that was terrible. Who would ever do that? I would still maintain, and I would still say this to this day, as my brother is not a North and South, so he's with me on it, right? 3 best decisions I ever made in my life: Jesus, my wife, and the military.
Yes.
Bar none.
Yes.
Yeah.
And would do it again.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
We do it again. We could save again, get married to the queen of my dreams again, and do the military all over again.
Yeah, I would. I'll take every deployment, everything over
every
again.
Every last one of them, because they all shaped me, just like Kelsey just said, for who I am today. And I thank God for it. Now, I'm not the best. Every once in a while, you know, I have a decent day, you know, but I praise God. But I praise God for what he's done with this whole train wreck. And all those things, because he wastes nothing, he was able to use for who and what it is that I do today.
Yeah.
And Vince, can I add to your statement? I'm sorry, Pastor D. I know we can talk always, because you know we're open book when we get around you. So thank you, number one. And if I can leave one thing with everyone that's listening, and this is how I got through. My wife identified it. What I was going through when I came back. So for those that are here, when we're talking about the veterans and the PTSD, please don't hold your tongue and just say, oh man, he's just this way. You got to help us identify the things that are normal to us, but are not normal to everyone else.
That's so good.
Me and Pastor Vincent can be around each other, and we can do the, you know, things that are normal to us, but to what we call the civilians of the world is strange. And like when I went to counseling, and I'm telling everyone, go to counseling, the lady said this to me. She said, is everyone else strange or different, or is it just you? I walked around calling everybody.
Wow.
Man, these people are this and this people are that. And she said, you're talking about all of them, but is it just you? So I had to, come back to reality that I'm not around a military installation here. I am the, the black sheep of the being normal, because everybody don't see it like I do. But when I'm with people of like mindset, to us it's normal. A car backfire and the whole parking lot dives on the ground. It's normal around people who have PTSD and been to combat. That's what we look for. But if I dive on the ground in the middle of Piggly Wiggly and everybody's standing up, I'm saying they crazy, but no, they looking at me saying something is wrong with that fella.
Yeah, I love what you said about because that was a thing. Again, there's so much that we didn't cover, but transitioning into like how can we help? I think that was so good what you just said about not biting our tongues, in the sense of identifying it to help, not to criticize, not to demean, not to ostracize and make a person feel a certain way.
They have to deliver it correctly, Pastor D. Please deliver it correctly, because if you just say you just crazy,
I can imagine how much that hurt. I can imagine if a spouse is like you just need help. After everything you've sacrificed, right? After everything that you've done, I could imagine how that's a difficult thing. And so for us as civilians, how we deal with it, how we address it. So what you just said, Pastor Vince, is it safe to say that the 3 things that may be necessary to help a veteran or somebody with PTSD is, number 1, Christ, having the Lord, right? Second thing is having a very strong support system, a true helpmate, a true brother, a true sister, right? and then some form of counseling or therapy.
Yes. It's not done enough. And I'm glad that you just kind of segued. I'm really brief. It's not done enough. For veterans who are listening and for those who are loved ones, remember, America is made up of less than 1% of the population of America, which is almost 380 million plus or minus now at last census, knows directly connected to a soldier, related to a soldier, married to a soldier himself. Less than 1% of our population upholds this huge mechanism called the U.S. military force, right? And so a lot goes overlooked, but that is one particular piece that we must address. And I really hope that the loved ones of veterans who may catch this or this may be shared with, go and speak to someone. The services are available to you. 988 right now is the number that's been made nationwide for veterans. 988, hit option 1. You can call and talk to somebody, whether you're part of the VA or if you're not. Before I got out, one of the best pieces of advice I got from a VA rater, because one of the things that you're trying to do is make sure that your ratings together so you can take care of your health and everything else, which, and as according to this platform in this month, is about your mental health. That's very important. You don't want to get out, your body's broken and your mind's broken as well, right? Is to go and sit on the couch. Go and sit on the couch. One of the VA raters said, we as soldiers were running around trying to get disability for sleep apnea or trying to get disability for shin splints and flat feet and all kinds of other stuff. But a lot of us neglect to go sit on the couch and talk to someone. And I know a lot of our brothers and sisters in Christ and other fellow pastors say, listen, and even our bishop ministers, by medicine and by miracle, some of us may need medicine just to get back to the middle, in the middle to make good decisions again. Right. And that's okay. And there's nothing to be ashamed of, right? At some point, we got to stop being the gladiator and the warrior that we were and be able to return and submerge and, meld back into normal society with regular folks, right? Who have their own things that are important to them. But I cannot say it enough. There's help for the veterans. Not just share with somebody that you love, like Kelsey said, Pastor Kelsey said, and tell them the truth in love, of course, the way that we know and trained as Christians, but also to go and seek out the help that is there for you. The military and the military services do provide.
And that help is for spouses and family members also.
As well.
Please, family members, you can get the same help because you serve along with your loved one.
Wow. And that, I think that's the part that people forget. The son whose father wasn't there for graduation, right? How that impacted him, though.
Right.
The wife that had to spend Valentine's Day alone year after year after year. Right. Those types of things. Wow. Listen, I'll tell you what, it's just I know there's so much we can uncover, and us civilians, I hope we really just heard how these gentlemen wrap this up, because what you got to understand is this. You said, Pastor Vince, that 22 veterans a day commit suicide, right? We see veterans that are homeless. We see all these different types of things. So we see that apparently the way that they've talked about this transition, the way that they have, by God's grace, successfully come to a certain place, there's a lot that just haven't. And how many of the folks just kind of just cope and just kind of go through and just kind of grit it out and tough it out, and they suffer, family suffers, and they're never, ever right because they just try to handle it their own or whatever the case may be. Wow. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, listen, we're going to definitely have to come back and do some other things. I have one of a veteran in my ministry, Ramsey. And so we specifically talked about some things that our ministry is going to do to begin to work with veterans and some different types of support and just some different things. And, especially for the veterans that are lonely, that they don't have anybody, that type of thing, some things that we're going to be doing just on an ongoing basis to be able to provide that support, to show, at the very least, thank you for what you did. Thank you for how you served. Thank you for the sacrifice, not only that you made when you were deployed, but what you are now making now, the ache in your body, the pain, the ringing in your ears, all that kind of stuff that you're having to kind of deal with and live with. The things that we want to do. And I'm telling you too, I appreciate y'all's service, man. I appreciate not only the service, but I appreciate where you all have come to. Just the awesome, powerful men of God that you all are. The different men and women that we're associated with that are. I saw Minister Haley, Elder Haley on here. I saw Pastor LT on here. Our bishop. I mean, there's something we could start naming off so many, especially you all. You all were more in that mix where it was Christian House of Prayer or Here with Destiny. I appreciate what you all have become, what you sacrificed, what you fought through to get to where you are. And I appreciate God's grace to bring you to this point. And just, you guys are dear to me. You're dear. You all are dear to me, and I'm grateful. And so New Life, I could tell you, there definitely will be a time when they're coming out and their spouses are coming out and they're going to be ministering to New Life. I know that time will come. Just waiting for the Lord to give that green light. And I'm telling you, you think that they're awesome in this circle. Wait till they start preaching and they get that mic, man. Them and their spouses, man, they turn the church upside down. I'll tell you that. They're going to turn the church upside down. So I appreciate y'all, man. Love you all.
Love you, Pastor Dave.
Love you, brother.
Share. Thank you for what you shared, and we'll bring y'all back soon.
Yes, sir.
God
New
bless you,
Life.
man.
Thank you, New Life.
New Life, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. You can go ahead and put them in the virtual green room and let me just kind of wrap it up. So listen, y'all, thank you so much. I know it was longer than we've normally gone, but we had a lot to talk about. And really, we just talked through a lot. And so I hope that you kind of like, imagine and put yourself in their shoes and their position and kind of now see what a soldier has to do, the way that they're programmed, and then really how they kind of have to kind of unprogram themselves. If they, especially the ones that don't go get help, they literally are trying to deal with this by themselves. And especially the one that's not born again, the one that doesn't know to run to Christ, run to the Word of God, get the peace of God, run to the Prince of Peace, the one that does not know how to be anxious for nothing, but by everything in prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. The one that does not know how to do that. And that's why sometimes we see the substance abuse. We see all the different types of things. We see the suicide because they're just trying to cope. And I got to say this is one thing I didn't say with them here, but I got an issue with this country, man. Somebody goes and they give their life. We should never see a homeless veteran. At the very least, this country needs to make sure that that person and their family are well taken care of for the rest of their lives. Never should we have a veteran homeless. Never should we have a veteran not getting the care and the support that they need. The least that we can do is say thank you by making sure. So I'm going to tell you this. If you know a veteran, or even if you know somebody who's active in the military right now, write them, reach out to them. The person that's a veteran that's in your life, man, listen, after this, there's no way you can just go on about your day and whatever the case would be. Text them this week, call them this week, take them out to eat, make sure that they're okay, families are okay. And they may not listen. And initially, they may not open up to you because they may not feel comfortable. But in the back of the mind, they got to know that person cares some sort of way because they're reaching out to me. And I believe that it'll be what Jesus said in that hour, the Holy Spirit will tell you what to say. And will use you to minister to that. And so I'm so grateful that you all joined in, man, that you hung out, you stayed all this time. That was our final couch time for 2024 for Mental Health Awareness Month. New Life, we are going to be in this space often. We're going to be dealing with mental and emotional health and stability in the Inland Empire, in the city of Ontario. Get plugged in. I'm not only concerned about your mental health, if you're a member or a friend of New Life, but the mental health of those that are in our community. We need to address that because God is focused on mental and emotional health. And so we need to be as well. Love you all. Thank you all so much for joining. I'll see y'all soon. Peace.